The New Orleans Saints have some big decisions to make here as the 2025 NFL season is still a few months away from getting started. And in today's video, I'm going to go through some of those decisions that they have to make, and I'm going to tell you what I would personally do if I was the general manager. But before we do that, I want to encourage you to join the Golden Gang. We're on the road to 50K subscribers, but our goal for this video, 45,300. We're chipping away every single video. We just need 52 people to join the Golden Gang. You get free Saints videos, content every single day by fans, for fans. What more could you ask for? Hit the sub button. Like I said, the New Orleans Saints really have some big decisions coming, and I think that some big changes are expected here in the building for the New Orleans Saints. They have to figure out what to do with some very expensive contracts, actually the two most expensive contracts, but they also have to figure out what's going to happen with the quarterback situation and who's going to be the starting quarterback. So we're going to dive through all of that. It's going to be really in-depth, a lot of good information, so I encourage you to hang out through the duration of this video. So the two most expensive players for the New Orleans Saints under contract as of right now, Monday, May 5th, happy Cinco de Mayo, by the way, at 12:25 p.m. Derek Carr at $20.5 million and Taysom Hill at $17.9 million. Now, for what it's worth, neither of these players, I don't think, will be making that much money this season. But I also want to I want to inform you and say that the Saints do have about $27 million in cap space to spend right now. So they can go and add some players. They could potentially trade for a guy and maybe give him some new money, or they could potentially decide to move on from some guys that are on the roster. So let's first start with Derek Carr. I think he is a cut candidate, and I did put out a video over the weekend that went into a full deep dive of why Derek Carr could be a cut candidate. So I'm not going to fully explain all of it there. I encourage you to watch that video. But for the Spark Notes, if you will, he hasn't been in attendance for any of the voluntary offseason programs. Again, they're voluntary, but you do see a lot of the leaders. You see a lot of the players out there, getting reps in front of new head coach Kellen Moore. And for what it's worth, remember this $27 million in cap space? If you make him a post-June 1 cut, it's a $20.5 million cap hit. For what it's worth, $7 million, still enough to maybe sign one or two guys, maybe like an Asante Samuel, and probably not also a Keenan Allen, but one or the other maybe. Why I also think Derek Carr is a cut candidate, this is a big, big reason. Kellen Moore is the new Saints head coach. Dennis Allen brought Derek Carr to New Orleans. Dennis Allen's not in the picture anymore. He's in an entirely different city. He is up north. Tyler Shough was the 40th overall pick, which is the highest the Saints have drafted a quarterback since 1971. It's the second highest they've drafted a quarterback ever, I believe, which is absolutely insane to me, all the way back to Archie Manning. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's impossible for Derek Carr to be the quarterback. It could happen. There is a world, like if we're going throwback to Infinity War or the Avengers Endgame days, there's like one scenario. I'm going to play through a million different scenarios. There's a handful where Derek Carr is the starting quarterback for the Saints this year. But it is very, very unlikely, in my opinion. It feels like the writing's on the wall. It feels like this is a relationship that, quite frankly, just needs to end. And I do think that the Derek Carr era is over here in New Orleans. The Saints, like I mentioned, $20 million dead cap hit if you make Derek Carr a post-June 1 cut. That is after the restructure happened. And in 2026, that cap number is so high. It's very nice at $69.2 million, but that's a lot of money. And he has a 2026 dead cap hit of $60 million. It's not a lot, or that's a lot. That's not very good. That's not what you want to deal with. The Saints do save a little bit of money, like $1.25 million if you trade him post-June 1. But for what it's worth, he does have a no-trade clause, so he'd have to be willing to waive it. And to be totally honest, that's something that probably wouldn't happen until post-June 1 anyway. So I don't think that we should expect any changes yet for Derek Carr, but maybe here in the next handful of weeks or in the next month or so. So we talked about Derek Carr. The big decision there is, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to cut him? Are you going to deal with the contract? Because Mickey Loomis did say maybe we're talking to him, and there has been reports that they've been in constant communication, and so it's just a weird situation. But when you kind of just take a step back and you think about all of the things considered, I think that Tyler Shough is a guy who will likely be the starting quarterback for the Saints in week 1. And Although some people were not big fans of the selection at 40 overall, he is, in my opinion, and in Jack Sperry's opinion, which, for what it's worth, go check out that video. Super informative. I had Jack Sperry, our NFL draft analyst here at Chat Sports, join the program, and he went into a huge deep dive about Tyler Shough. Super, super good information there. But he's the most pro-ready guy, maybe outside of Cam Ward, in this entire draft class. He's played through a lot of adversity. He's played through a lot of different situations. He has a good arm. The big things for him are his age and the health. He will be 26 by the time he takes his first snap in the National Football League, but he is a player who is really productive at a lot of different schools, although injuries did derail his career. They're not soft tissue injuries, and they're not injuries that people are too worried about. That'll be lingering problems, if that makes sense. But, don't count out Spencer Rattler. I will say this. Do not count out Spencer Rattler, because if Tyler Shough struggles in training camp and Spencer Rattler shows in year 2 during the offseason he took some big steps, which Kellen Moore expects, then don't be surprised if the Saints opt to throw Spencer Rattler out there and say, all right, Rattler, you get a chance. Let's see what you got. If you do it, great. If you don't, we got our boy Tyler Shough waiting in the shadows, and we're going to put him on the field if you struggle. So I think that it is fair to say Tyler Shough or Spencer Rattler could be the starting quarterback. I tend to lean towards Tyler Shough just because of how high the investment was, and because Kellen Moore, the head coach who's currently on the staff, is the player who made this selection. He did not make these selection when he did not sign this player. So I think the loyalty and the fact that it's a high draft capital I think that the fact that Kellen Moore picked him, so there's the loyalty to that, and there's also the high draft investment in Tyler Shough. It means he's probably the starter in week 1. But get down in the comments. Let me know. So let's talk Taysom Hill now, because there's a big decision coming there too. Remember, Taysom Hill has the second highest cap hit at $17.9 million in 2025. So what should the New Orleans Saints do? And I'm going to just go ahead and preface with this. Cutting him is very, very in play here. And I'm not trying to scare you away, but stick around for a second and I'll explain my thoughts. Now, really quick, if you want to go and get yourself some new gear, I was trying to find myself a new hat to rock this summer. I found this hat. It had the most popular label on Fanatics, 25% off. Khaki, it's going to match with everything, dude. You got a white shirt, you got a black shirt, you want to rock a jersey, you want to rock a polo, you want to rock a Hawaiian shirt. I mean, hey, this hat is going to be perfect for you. It's so fresh, it's so clean. I'm ordering mine, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Chatsports.com/Saints hats. The link is in the comments and description of this video. There's also a lot of other hats available as well, so I highly encourage you to browse around and see what else you might want to pick up. The link is in the comments and description. Chatsports.com/Saints hats. Get the most popular hat on Fanatics for 25% off. So what's going on with number 7? I want to set the scene here. If you guys didn't remember, he suffered a really bad knee injury against the Rams back in December in week 13. And he's still recovering from that serious knee injury. And it's not just a knee injury, it's also an ACL tear. Like, this is an injury that has ended careers for players that were much younger and have a lot less tread on the tires. That being said, those players were not Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is about the toughest SOB I've probably ever seen put on a football helmet, and he honestly is a Hall of Famer in my opinion, and he should end up in Canton. That being said, he is going to be 35 years old when he takes his next snap in the National Football League, and he's entering the final year of a 4-year, $40 million contract, which a lot of people critiqued way back when in 2021 when Sean Payton signed him to that deal. But, I'll say this. He's a very, very phenomenal player. He's a very exciting guy, and he's a really useful weapon. And there will never be another Taysom Hill. You can try and recreate it, but there will never be another Taysom Hill. And in regards to whether or not he's going to be able to play, Mickey Loomis, he was talking to media, and he said in kind of a concerning tone, well, look, he had a serious knee problem or a serious knee injury, and it's going to be a while. So, I think the writing was on the wall the entire time. I mean, a knee injury is already pretty dangerous and it's pretty scary, and he's going to be out for a while. So you're at least looking at maybe, at best case scenario, October, maybe, to see him return. I just got to say, I think we got to prepare for the worst, Saints fans. And by no means am I trying to ruin your day. By no means am I wanting to put any bad juju around Taysom Hill's name, but I think we need to prepare for the worst. He is a player who's old, who's coming off a serious injury, who, if you keep him on the roster, will cost you $10 more million than if you cut him. So those are things to think about. There's things to consider. I don't want the Saints to cut Taysom Hill. I want him to retire in the black and gold, but it's something we have to talk about. And I'm going to get into the details and everything. But I need you to comment number 7. Show some love to Taysom Hill down below. One of my favorite players to ever play the game of football, but especially to wear the black and gold. He is a special player, one of a kind. Every team wants a player like Taysom Hill, but there is only one. So type number 7 to show him some love in the comments. Let's go into the cap numbers. Let's go into the finances here. In 2025, he's going to cost you $17,986,500. So a lot of guap right there. That's a lot of dough right there. In 2025, the dead cap number, just under $8 million. And in 2026, he has a dead cap of just under $10 million. But if you cut him as a post-June 1 cut in 2025, this is all for post-June 1, by the way, for what it's worth. You save $10 million. That's not insignificant, especially if you're planning on cutting Derek Carr, which is going to cost you $20 million. And think about it. You could go from having $7 million to spend to 17. And immediately that opens up the opportunity to not just sign Asante Samuel, but also Keenan Allen. So that's 2 positions and 2 players that could add a lot more juice to this roster and could be ready to play on week 1. And so, again, I'm not saying the Saints should do this. I don't want it to happen, but it has to be discussed. It is a realistic possibility. You know what else is potential? A trade. Financially, it's the exact same. You'd save $10 million. All of that is the exact same if you cut him or traded him post-June 1st. But I'm not sure there's much of a market for an injured, very unique player that is very talented, but is coming off of a serious injury that's 35 years old, or 34 now, will be 35. I just don't see much of a market, and I don't see you getting much in return. That also being said, there's only one coach out there who would make this trade, and it's Sean Payton of the Denver Broncos. So unless Sean Payton calls, maybe a trade could happen. I just don't see that being the case. But restructuring, it's something the Saints do a lot. I would tend to say don't do that. You don't really save all that much money. You only save about $5.8 million. You save less than $6 million in 2025 if you restructured his contract, which, sir, would be nice. However, it also would be one of those things. It will raise the dead money owed in 2026 to very, very high. He's already guaranteed $9.7 million in 2026. That number will not change. That is going to happen. But the dead money will raise pretty significantly if you restructure him. Now, what if you do nothing? Well, the Saints would owe $17.9 million this season. They would owe $9.7 next year, and then $3.9 million in void years in 2027 with dead money. You have a void year in 26, void year in 27. You'd be pushing more money off, or you would be paying that money off that you've already pushed off from the restructures and whatnot. But that's if you do nothing. So that is also an option. You just eat a lot of money now and you deal with it later. But reminder, the salary cap increases every year. And so if you do decide to go that route of restructuring, you're pushing the more money, but it doesn't matter how much it increases. You could still pay upwards of $10+ million if you restructure his contract. So, I don't want to see the Saints restructure him, although you will see the salary cap increase. I think you just eat some of that money, to be totally honest, now and then just pay less in the future, and it's really not all that big of a deal. But look, he also could retire. There is that possibility. Could he? Absolutely. That is not very far-fetched, to be totally honest. But good news for those of you and for those of all of us who do not want to see that happen. He has yet to reduce his base salary, which is a move that a lot of teams do and a lot of players do when they're on their way out due to retirement. So I think Ryan Ramczyk did it, Drew Brees did it, Malcolm Jenkins did it. There's a lot of examples of this specifically with the Saints, but across the league, where players will reduce the base salary to help the team get a little bit more cap space, but then they just retire later on. So that is also something that could happen. If this is an issue where medically he has to retire, that could happen. So financially, what does it mean? The Saints would owe him $7.8 million in dead money in 2025, and you would actually defer $9.7 million to next year in 2026. So all in all, let's just put a bow on this entire conversation. A lot of numbers. I'm honestly kind of giving myself a little bit of a headache. Have y'all, Dylan, you ever seen The Hangover and Alan when he's at the poker table, he has all the equations going? That's how I feel right about now. But the final verdict, this is what I would do if I was Mickey Loomis and I was Kellen Moore and I was running the New Orleans Saints. I would prepare for the worst, and I would honestly just eat that money this year, and then I would just say, screw it, it's fine. If he can play in October, great. Awesome. Let's run it. And he can have a great send-off at the end of the year. But I don't want to see the Saints screw themselves more financially. They've been doing a good job of thinking about the future of with their money, and I want to see that happen still, especially with this Taysom Hill contract, because it is a really, really big deal. So what I would do is I would, A, not touch the contract. That's just me personally. B, I would also, as us fans, prepare for the worst. Maybe he does get cut, and you do save $10 million. I don't want him to get cut. That's why I would say just don't touch the money. But saving $10 million is very, very intriguing. I will say that. And especially if the injury has setbacks, maybe you do end up cutting him, or maybe he just straight up retires. So I just got to say, again, prepare for the worst, but let's hope for the best. Lastly, I want to encourage you to give your boy a follow on Instagram. We've seen a lot of growth on my Twitter and on my TikTok page, but don't be sleeping on my IG. I be posting a lot of good stuff over there, so hit me up, Trace Girouard 48_. The link is in the comments and description of this video. Only 167 followers away from 2,000, so give your boy a follow. Y'all stay golden, and we'll see you next time.